Hello, everybody. Hello, people. Thanks for tuning in. I want to really make this clip about assumptions in some way. An assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. Very famous Neville Goddard saying there, which I really, really like. And I like the idea of the assumption becoming a fact in objective reality. It's like the solidification, is that a word, of assumptions. That's what that saying says to me. So I've got my notes here, my clip, you can read backwards. And my first point is, if you can imagine yourself in your desired state of being, you're already there. I know I've said that before, but it's a point worth repeating, people. I believe this. If you get into the state of the person you want to be in your imagination, you're there. It's happening right now, right there and then in your imagination. So you've managed it, you've done it, and you've got to believe you've already done it. It's so important. How come you're already there? Because the eternal body of man is the imagination. So you are all imagination. So where you are in your imagination, you have to be in reality. Because that's what you are, your imagination. You're, in some strange way, you're imagining yourself in this physical form. And that's obviously a continuous kind of imagining, but we can imagine all kinds of things, and we can make this present life much happier for ourselves if we learn to control it and use it consciously instead of unconsciously, which is what most of us do most of the time. And we don't even realize we're doing it. We're just having these imaginary conversations day in, day out, thinking negatively about things, and we're not actually believing deep down that it's having an effect. So we need to start changing those conversations when they happen. Change them for really positive conversations. Light. See, that happened when I said positive. It's amazing, isn't it? There's truth in it. So we've got to learn to master our thoughts and feelings. And it's a nice idea, isn't it? But sometimes you can just get lost in the day and you just think, what did I master today? Nothing. So we need to keep reminding ourselves. And I was thinking, I don't know where my pen is now. You could just write on your hand. You know, who cares? If anybody asks you, tell them what you want to tell them. But just write rest. Like rest in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, rest. And then every time you look down and see that, or you could have it just an R, it's a reminder, isn't it? Until you start to get into a habit of just maintaining the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Because you've got to just maintain it throughout the day. If you don't, it's not going to happen. It's got to be at least regular. I don't know, continual. That would be great, you know, touch into the feeling on as often as you can. I'm trying to, but I do forget. Now you may think, well, okay, I'm already there. I'm in the state. Hooray, I've achieved it. But I'm not seeing anything for my efforts. And I want to see it here and now in this world, thanks. It's coming. It's coming as long as you persist in it. Because the physical manifestation of your desire, your dream, is a secondary reaction. You've got to be in the state regularly first. And then that brings the manifestation in objective reality, which is a reflection of your experience in the state. So that's what we've got to do. We've just got to hold on for it to happen. Two main reasons why people fail are, one, that they do not persist in maintaining the feeling of the wish fulfilled. They give up too quickly before it's had a chance to manifest. So I think that's really tied down to faith. That's why we've got to keep studying and work on our belief. Because if we truly believe that this is all true, that we will persist, because we know that it's going to bear much fruit and it's going to make our life much better. So why wouldn't you persist? You would. So the antidote to the first reason for failure is to study and to contemplate the teachings and to practice what they preach in the books. But what is the second reason for failure? Well, the second reason is that we get fooled by the world, the everyday reality of this life. And we see it and we think, it's not possible. I'm not going to do it. It's not realistic. Everything around me is saying, no, not you. It happens to other people, but not to you. And in whatever way we hear it, we start to believe what we're seeing around us, that nothing is ever going to change. We're always going to be in our present situation. And it's just a lie. It's doubt. It's so difficult to rise above that sometimes, because what we see is often all we believe to be real. And again, it comes down to study and just seeing objective reality, the world around us, as a shadow that's come from our imagining. It has a certain form of reality, but it's certainly not permanent. It's always changing all the time, and we can change it. So persist in the assumption, keep thinking, yeah, it's a fact. I've got it. I am that person. I've succeeded. Feel good about it. And also, just don't trust objective reality. Don't give too much weight to the world of the senses. It's not the only world. Just give it a light touch. Just remain happy. I'm saying just a lot, aren't I? Remain happy, knowing that it's on the way. And keep that faith alive. And it's the belief, it's the faith in it that brings the experiences to you. Once you've committed to it in your mind and you keep going, it's going to happen. And you better believe it. It is going to happen. So just keep going with it and don't trust the world too much. So that's the main thing, really. Now, what else did I want to say? I don't know why I've just written this. God and free will. Just that Neville Goddard said that the only free will that Neville Goddard believed that we had was the free will to imagine whatever we want. And I would go with that. So once we've imagined what we want to happen in our life, the how it happens, that's out of our control. We don't know how it's going to happen. And that's why I'm just thinking, is this going slowly again? I hate it when it happens. That's why we have to be a bit open-minded about things that happen to us. Because if we're not trusting in this process. So I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted because it slows down sometimes. Shh. Is it slowing down? Because I'm going to have to stop it if it is. It's enough light. You'd think it'd be okay. It's all about the light, isn't it, at the end of the day? I think it's all right. Okay, so what was I saying again? Sorry, people, I just had to switch it off because I'm losing the light now, so it's going a bit slow. So I'm going to just hurry it along. and read you a chapter from my book, The Power of Awareness, by Neville Goddard, and it's called All Things Are Possible. I was reading this on my birthday, sitting in a park, resting against a tree, and it was really lovely. And I just kept reading it over and over again because it just had all the main points in there, and it was really inspiring to me. So I hope you like it too. Here we go. It is of great significance that the truth of the principles outlined in this book have been proven time and again by the personal experiences of the author. Throughout the past 25 years, he has applied these principles and proved them successful in innumerable instances. He attributes to an unwavering assumption of his wish already being fulfilled every success that he has achieved. He was confident that by these fixed assumptions, his desires were predestined to be fulfilled. Time and again, he assumed the feeling of his wish fulfilled and continued in his assumption until that which he desired was completely realized. So I think I underlined like the key words for me there, and I had unwavering assumption. You don't doubt at all, you're absolutely certain. Every success, he believes every success he achieved was through this. And I believe that too. And I liked continued in his assumption until that which he desired was completely realized. So you don't stop. You've got to wait. You don't wait. You've got to keep going until it actually appears. I know there's sometimes confusion about the feeling of satisfaction, and then that means you've got it, so you can just drop it. Maybe if you have a really strong feeling about that, but just because he's written here to keep going until you see it, I would do that. Just, because if you're in the state, you would be living in it all the time, wouldn't you? So you're just keeping going in the feeling. You're living in the feeling, and then you become that, and then the physical world matches it. That's how I see it anyway. So keep going. We have to all encourage each other, I think. This is a very short chapter, by the way, in case you're thinking, oh, how long is she going to go on for? It's like 1, 2, but it could go on. Live your life in a sublime spirit of confidence and determination. Disregard appearances, conditions, in fact, all evidence of the senses that deny the fulfillment of your desire. And I love the disregard, just that word, disregard. Whatever it looks like in the outside world, whatever it's telling you as though, no, you're never going to make it, and then this bad situation's happened and you feel a bit down, disregard it as far as you can. Disregard appearances, because that's all they are. They're just appearances. You don't know what's going to happen. Just because something looks like that doesn't mean it's the end result, does it? So again, that's keep the open mind about it. However hard it is, I know it really is hard sometimes. Just keep going. No choice. What else? Okay, so rest in the assumption that you are already what you want to be. And already, such an important word. I am already, fill in the blank. So you've got to keep using that. I'm already this. And it will have a feeling. It will make you believe you've done it. Yes. For in that determined assumption, You and your infinite being are merged in creative unity, and with your infinite being, God, all things are possible. God never fails. I think I missed the beginning of that, sorry, so I'm going to read it again. Rest in the assumption. Did I say rest in the assumption? I don't know. Rest in the assumption that you are already what you want to be. For in that determined assumption, you and your infinite being are merged in creative unity. And with your infinite being, God, all things are possible. God never fails. So that's amazing that you have this assumption that you've achieved it. You've made it. And just by resting in that certainty, you're merging with God, the imagination, and that's what brings it into being. And when I've rested in the feeling, and it's just like feeling like that warm feeling inside, I think now, oh, I'm merging with God, wow. And it doesn't feel wasted time at all. It's the most precious time, I think. And it feels really nice. So just to keep knowing that feeling. So make that feeling really familiar in your life. Resting in God on a regular basis, as often as you can. And maybe you could be having a conversation with somebody and then remember, I should be resting in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. So you could feel it while you're listening to them. And then every time you listen to somebody, that could be a reminder to rest in that feeling. And you're still listening, you're still being polite, but you feel much happier, whatever they're saying, because you are going close to your dream. You're in it, but it's coming to you every time you do that. I'm going to do that. For who can stay his hand or say unto him, what doest thou? Through the mastery of your assumptions, you are in very truth enabled to master life. It is thus that the ladder of life is ascended, thus the ideal is realized. The clue to the real purpose of life is to surrender yourself to your ideal with such awareness of its reality that you begin to live the life of the ideal and no longer your own life as it was prior to this surrender. So that's all about the state as well, isn't it? What you imagine, you become. So you're resting in the new state, the new concept of yourself, and imagining how it would feel, imagining a scene where you see your friends, you see the expressions on their faces and they're responding to you differently. All these things that bring the state to you. And then gradually, that's what shows in everyday reality. Because you're becoming it. You become it first through the imagination. It's always like that. But when something shows up, you have always imagined it first. Always. He calleth things that are not seen as though they were, and the unseen becomes seen. From the Bible. The unseen becomes seen. He calleth things as though they were. And it is imagining, but you're using words as well. Words are so powerful as long as you are feeling the meaning there, not just saying them with repetition. It's got to have the meaning behind them. Each assumption has its corresponding world. If you are truly observant, you will notice the power of your assumptions to change circumstances which appear wholly immutable. You, by your conscious assumptions, determine the nature of the world in which you live. Ignore the present state and assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Claim it. It will respond. The law of assumption is the means by which the fulfillment of your desires may be realized. Every moment of your life, consciously or unconsciously, you are assuming a feeling. You can no more avoid assuming a feeling than you can avoid eating and drinking. All you can do is control the nature of your assumptions. Thus it is clearly seen that the control of your assumption is the key you now hold to an ever-expanding, happier, more noble life. And I believe that, and I know you believe it too, most of you listening. The key to a happier life. So I think we've just got to build the habit of assuming. I think most people watching this know what they have to do. It's just doing it, isn't it? And probably a lot of you are better than me, but if you're anything like me, I will get caught up in day-to-day life, especially with work and the speed of things and doing things by deadlines. And it can just go right out the window, and it's actually the most important thing. It's the one thing that's going to change our lives. So whatever makes you remember to hold that feeling of the wish fulfilled throughout the day, use it. I think it's a good one. Every time you speak to somebody, when you're speaking, you're focused on that. But when you're listening, you can still listen to the person or not. But you can be imagining the feeling more. That could be a really good reminder. And write on your hand. God, I haven't written on my hand, I think, since I was very young. I always thought I would get poisoned by it, but it's not true, I think. So write rest on your hand. It'll work. Somebody said to me, or somebody wrote on my, whatever it's called, YouTube channel, why don't you tell us about some of your experiences? Like, yeah, I bet you've had some. No. So the main one, which I think I've mentioned it before, sorry if you've heard it, is my house. So I have a really nice house, actually. As you can see, it's quite big. And you see that piano? I imagined that black shiny piano. But whatever I say is going to make no difference to people who think everything comes from the external. Because you can always trace it back to a physical cause. But it doesn't mean that the physical cause didn't have a spiritual cause to begin with. So everything can be said to be coincidence. If that's the way you think. I say it's not. I don't believe in coincidence. Coincidence is not scientific. Anyway, when I was a bit younger, about 8 years ago, I lived in a different place in London called Kilburn. And I had a nice flat. It was a nice area. It was close to St John's Wood, which is quite posh, and Kilburn is quite down to earth, so in between. And I am a teacher, so because we don't earn much money, sadly, they give us some perks. And one of those perks was, if you want to buy your own place, the government would, or some scheme from the government, I think, give you £50,000, but it was only yours if you stayed in that place. for the rest of your life. And you retired and that was it. So then you could have it. It was your money. But if you wanted to move to a different place, you had to give it back. It was just intended as a starter to get you on the property ladder. So fair enough. But it was really difficult for me because I had a really low mortgage. That wasn't the difficult part. That was great. I was only paying about £100 a week. And that's very cheap for London to have your own flat. But I don't know if it's called the same thing in America, a service charge. But we have this bill to pay if you live in a flat for maintenance of the building. So because I was kind of on the borders of this slightly posh area, it was quite expensive. There were probably other reasons why it was expensive, but I don't know, it was expensive. I was having to pay over £2,000 a year, I know that. And the estate agent said to me, yeah, but it includes your bills, it includes your gas and your water or whatever. And I thought, oh, yeah, I won't have to pay anything else. But it wasn't really like that. They just say what they want so that you buy it. So it started off and it was already really expensive for me. But over the course of a few years, there was work that they had to do to the building because it was quite old. And it went from over £2,000 somewhere to over £8,000 in a year. And that's a massive bill for a teacher. And then at the same time, I was not working as a teacher anymore for various reasons. And I started working as a supply teacher. And it was very on and off. And some days I just didn't want to work anyway because they'd call up and they'd want you really far away very quickly. And it wasn't very nice. So that didn't help. But I was earning a lot less money and my bills were massive. I'll try and speed the story up now. So I wrote this letter to the housing place saying, this is my situation. Basically, please can I keep the 50,000? Is there some way? I'm losing my voice. Is there some way I can keep it? I wrote a really long sob story and tried everything. But I was offering to pay for it. But they said no, there's no way, sorry. And it was really like a door shut in my face. There was no discussion about it. But what I was doing was every day I was saying thank you for the house. I remember that very clearly. Morning, noon and night. I thought minimum of those 3 times and all the other times as well. So I imagined I lived in this house, and I had a garden. I don't know how much longer I can continue. Which is good for you because I'll shorten the story a lot now. I imagined various things about the house. I couldn't afford anything with the paying back of the 50,000. Even a studio flat somewhere on the outskirts would have probably been possible. So what did I do? I kept on imagining and I didn't give up. And my parents were saying, but they're not going to change their mind. And I said, no, I think they will. I wrote another letter and I don't know what my take on it was the second time. But they wrote back and it wasn't a definite no the second time. It was like, can't promise anything, probably not, but why don't you fill in this form? I think that was actually the third time, the form, but things were changing with the form. Boris Johnson was the Mayor of London, and just put this in. Sorry, it always goes off. Boris Johnson was the Mayor of London, and he was changing things so that more people could have their house or flat or whatever, or at least that's what they said he was doing. I benefited from it, definitely. So I guess somebody working for him, it probably wasn't him directly, but they changed the rules. So suddenly they said yes. And it wasn't like you're having the money. It was, you'll have 2 mortgages. One mortgage is to pay off the £50,000. Fair enough, it's not my money. But it enabled me. That sounds horrible. It enabled me. Oh, I've got to stop it. Hello, people, I'm back. Cheers. I think this is better than water because my throat is so bad. I've got to try something else, really. You probably stop listening now anyway. But I am going to finish the story. I haven't given up. So I was saying it enabled me to buy a house. And I was imagining for a 2-bedroom house. And I got a 2-bedroom house. And it was exactly in the range of the money that I was allowed to spend. And it was quite a narrow range. The first one I went for, I lost. But it didn't have the garden, really. It was just this sitting out area. And this one has got the garden. So I was really pleased with that. So that was the main thing I've imagined for, I'd say, because that's quite a big thing, having a house. But there are other things, like I imagine the piano, got that in an auction place, but it was exactly what I wanted, a black shiny piano. The house had damp when I got here, and it was going to cost quite a bit of money. So I was imagining having exactly the right amount to pay for the damp. And I didn't know what the bill was going to be. It was, what was it? It was something like 1,600 and something. It was close to £2,000. And I paid it. And then really soon after, a cheque came in from the tax office because they owed me money. And it was £5 more than the bill. So I was like, thanks God, thanks for the change. Thanks for the £5. And when I mentioned that somewhere else and somebody said, oh yeah, but you'd applied for the money, so no. And actually I hadn't applied for any money. But even if I had, that's what I mean. It looks like it comes from a physical cause. Where else is it going to come from? It's not going to just come out of the sky, is it? It's not going to fall off a tree. So if you've got that approach, you'll never believe it. You've got to realise that there is a spiritual cause behind the seeming physical cause. It's got to come from somewhere. So that's why I think sometimes it's a waste for me to talk about my experiences. Not to people who believe, but they believe anyway. Because people will always say, oh, whatever. So you believe what you believe. I say, test it and see, like Neville Goddard does. Try it. Because if it works for you, that is all the evidence you need. You don't need to prove it to anyone else. I don't need to prove it to anyone. I just keep going with it. And hope for the best. There was another funny story I had, but I'm not going to say it now. But it was with unconscious imagining that something happened. But I'm going to save that for another time, if I remember. Okay. So that's it, basically. You've got to just keep going with it and develop a habit of resting in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Because you know what you've got to do. It's just doing it. So we've got to really change our lives so that we're already seeing things a bit differently than your regular Joe on the streets, if you're seeing things as coming from the imagination rather than externally to you. So the good news is you've got control over it if you want. It's just building that positive habit, mastering your thoughts and feelings, which is true mastery of life. So what do you think about that? Any comments? I think that life is a great mystery, and I'm very happy to live in the I don't know. I feel like I live in the I don't know a bit with Neville Goddard. I believe him, but it's so mystical. I just think you just do it. You can't expect to know all the answers with it. And that's what makes it so beautiful as well. My throat feels so much better now. I feel I could keep on talking for a long time, especially if I drink this baby. But I am aware that I've done 3 clips now and I've got to join them together. So I better stop. I've gone on way too long as it is. I hope you got something from that. And if you follow any of my advice, please tell me if it works. I'm going to follow it too. Promise. Okay, it's getting a bit dark. So thank you so much for your, thank you for watching until now. And thank you so much, people who wrote nice birthday greetings to me. I really appreciated that. So I might put me dancing to a song on now, a little clip, 2 seconds on my birthday, but maybe I won't. Okay, so see you soon. Bye.